Hey, hey, hey. Coming on live today talking about boundary creation, boundaries in relationships especially. So grabbing yourself some tea whilst we dive on in. So if you're there, let me know you're there so that we can dive on in today. So a welcome to She TV, the place to become powerfully feminine from the inside out. Today, I'm talking to you about how to create boundaries in relationships. Now, my whole work with women is about showing women how to become powerfully feminine from the inside out. And so you might be thinking a couple of things around boundaries in relationships. Things like, isn't my partner supposed to know and anticipate and guess my every need and desire? Aren't boundaries callous? Aren't boundaries about creating a shutdown or a closing? And don't boundaries interfere with romance and spontaneity of a relationship? So what I want to endeavor to do is to dispel those myths around boundary creation and tell you a bit why it matters to create boundaries and clarity in relationships. So firstly, creating boundaries in relationship creates a lot of strong sexual polarity, true feminine, true masculine, okay? And that's a good thing. We actually want a bit more polarity in relationships. And I can promise you that if you know my work a little bit at this point, it is only her that is in her true feminine that is clear on her boundaries, who sets her boundaries and clearly and cleanly communicates them with those around her, whether it's about your primary sexual relationship or any relationship. It's so important. And to the contrary, those that don't know their boundaries, aren't clear, are constantly in a fighting dynamic trying to defend boundaries that they aren't even clear on and that they aren't communicating clearly to other people. So kings and queens, as in the true feminine and the true masculine, are super clear on their own and their partner's boundaries, and they respect them. And I can promise you that kings out there will bend themselves over sideways to defend and support their queen's boundaries. Okay. Let me just think what else I want to pass here. Now, the thing is, in a primary relationship, right, boundaries are even more critical. Why? Because we are taking a person into our most inner sanctum, into our most inner, most vulnerable inner territory, right? And so, unlike other relationships, you're inviting this person into your most intimate emotional space, your most intimate sexual space, and your most intimate physical space. Now, before we proceed, and I did talk about the true and false feminine there, I just want to make sure, if you haven't done this yet, that you take my feminine archetypes quiz. There's going to be a link above and a link below to take that. And that's going to help you discover where you're at in terms of your own archetype. All right. So let's be clear. So in unhealthy relationships, what happens is partners are assuming that because they like something, that their partner does too, right? So if I like this, you must like it too, right? Or if I like things done this way, you must like it done this way too. And what they do then is they ignore the effects also of violating their partner's boundaries. As in, well, they'll get over it. It's no big deal, right? All right. So what I want you to understand here is not being clear on your boundaries and then not setting them and discussing them with your partner, then it's totally unfair to them. Now, especially as women with the masculine, we do this thing all the time where we expect them to read our mind. And I can tell you that drives men batshit crazy, trying to work out what we're thinking at any moment. So the thing is, the work on establishing boundaries and you knowing really super clearly your needs and desires are very closely related. This is exactly why the art of desire is one of the 5 core feminine arts that I teach women in my program, the Powerfully Feminine Intensive. Because until you can identify your values, your needs, and your desires in yourself, how can you possibly communicate that with somebody else? And men, to the contrary, love it when a woman knows what she needs and wants and is very clear on her boundaries. They love that. It takes a whole lot of pressure off them. And then they go, oh, I can provide that for you. Because providing is one of the core things that the masculine loves to do for the feminine. All right. So I want you to understand or think of boundaries less like a wall, like you're walling yourself off or you're defending yourself, but more a bit like a line in the sand. Okay, I'm totally here, I'm totally open, but there's a line in the sand here. And inside that line are such things as your values, okay? How you wish to be treated, how you want to communicate and be communicated with, you know, like how somebody speaks to you, how somebody gets to use your body or otherwise, how much they know about you, how much intimacy you are with them emotionally, okay, and physically, how much of yourself you share with them. And inside that line is where the most vulnerable and personal inner sanctum parts of yourself will be shared. Now, outside of the line are basically the things that you won't tolerate, back to our original quote today, okay? These things where you draw the line, okay, in terms of those things we just spoke about before, okay? And if your boundary is violated, as in somebody oversteps the boundary, you have the power then to remove them out of your inner sanctum. You get to move them further away from you, okay? All right. So I want to see who is here. Hello, Dejanette. Hello, Amanda Fox. Hello from London. Misty, hello. Hello, T. McReynolds, Strawberry Mins. Hello, Strawberry Mins. Strawberry Min says, I'm the princess. I really appreciate this a lot. Absolutely. And she's saying, oh my gosh, this is the biggest mistake I made in my last relationship. Absolutely. I think you're asking, why are my desires and needs so hard to admit to myself? Well, honey, there's a process that you need to learn, okay? Most people don't know what they want. Let's be crystal clear. I've been doing therapeutic and self-transformation with work with people for over 20 years. And if there's one thing I know about most people is they do not know what they want and desire. Okay, so it takes coaching and mentoring and sometimes therapy or something to help you see what's either blocking you from seeing what you really want, or actually having the courage, and I say this advisedly, having the courage to take what I call a deep dive into desire and really go into the deep inner territory, right? And discover what are very unconscious desires and needs inside yourself. Okay, this is a topic for another conversation, but deep diving into desire is one of the most important things you can do if you want to step into your queen and step into the true feminine. All right. Hello, beaches and sand from Indonesia. Desiree 234. I'm your good listener. Cecilia, hello. I can't read that. Hershingans and Gada. Hello from Egypt, Cecilia. Cecilia asks a question, what boundaries do you recommend to increase polarity? Well, you know what? The thing is, Cecilia, you know, the reason why I go through a process of training women into the arts and skills that are required for you to learn how to be in your feminine polarity, you need to learn how to do that first. Honestly, until you learn the 5 core feminine arts first, own them, embody them in yourself, it's going to be very difficult for you to draw lines in the sand and to be clear on your own boundaries. Oh, Strawberries Mills says, I always feel like I should be settling and happy with the crumbs. Well, as you said before, honey, that's exactly the belief system of a princess. And again, you know, in order for you to see your value and know your value, you probably need some support and help there. Beaches and sand, great question. How do you make your boundaries known to your partner in a feminine way? Okay, so I'm trying to find the right way to say that. I do an entire training with women called Arise in Your Queen, Attract Your King. Okay, it's a whole training. It's a 3-month training about understanding masculine, feminine dynamics in relationships, how to attract a king, how to stand up in your queen while you're dating and in relationships, etc. So I think the only way I can answer that in short without a real training behind it is I always say, it's amazing what you can say with a smile on your face, okay? And you see, one thing that I've noticed that women often do is that they tolerate and they tolerate and they tolerate and they tolerate until they explode like a volcano. Now, that doesn't work for anybody. So when you stand in your queen, see, a queen is minutely, moment by moment, second by second, acutely aware of her needs, of her desires, of her boundaries, because she's already established them, okay? And if you are minutely aware of them, then you can communicate when something is or isn't working for you without there being a big bombastic charge around it, and you can communicate it pretty cleanly and pretty clearly. Okay, good. Hello from Germany, says Aliyah. I'm only going to answer questions about boundaries today. Desiree234, hi, I want to act as feminine, but fear always comes in. Yeah, well, honey, this is one of my main reasons for developing sisterhood, okay? So whether you have stories from your life now or memories from childhood or anything like that, that elicits this fear that standing in your authentic self, standing up in your true feminine is dangerous, for example, then this is why I create inner sanctum communities of women so that we can learn 2 things. 1, to communicate with each other some of these fears as we're working through them, as I'm training women, and 2, to develop trust in women. Because a lot of that fear is often that we don't trust other women, okay? And so there's a learning to trust women who are in their true feminine, because the lack of trust comes from the false feminine, and it also attracts false feminine around you. So as I'm training women to be in their true feminine and stand in their true feminine, there's 0 tolerance for bad behavior from the false feminine perspective in my communities. And then we learn actually how to communicate in a really empowered way and how to speak a lot of vulnerability, right? Because we haven't learned how to do that yet, because we didn't have role models. And Aaliyah Lynn says, I was so surprised to find that making boundaries didn't push away my partner. Absolutely. And Beaches and Sand says, thanks for that answer. A smile and a soft voice goes a long way with the masculine. Yeah, and another way that you can do that is what I call, it's the sandwich method, okay? So if we need to communicate something difficult or edgy for us, so communicating your boundaries might be edgy for you, it might feel edgy, is that you start with a compliment, you communicate the tricky thing in the middle, and then you end with a compliment, right? So, honey, I'm so, loving the way that you take care of me. It means so much to me. But when you did X thing, I found myself not feeling very safe. So I'm wondering if, when we move into the future, if you'd be able to just be a little bit more aware of me in that kind of situation, because that would really provide me a sense of feeling safe. Okay, now I used a whole lot of language in there that speaks to the masculine that I do in my trainings that I can't do, in a short session here. But can you see how that's a very different way to communicate a difficult situation? All right. Leah Lynn says, I love this advice. Thank you very much, Candice, says Desiree. Oh, it's so fun to get on here. I haven't done a live for a long time, on YouTube at least. I do live streams every single week inside of my my private Facebook group called Smart Savvy Feminine Woman, okay? And I'll put a link above for that too. So you are, as my YouTube community, you're invited inside of that. And I do weekly live streams in there on various topics around feminine power and energy. So I'm going to sign off here today. If you have any more comments or experiences, you can pop them down in the comments box below. And I want to remind you that when you have the courage to go out there and shine, you give other people permission to do the same. So let's all go out there and shine this week. Signing off for now, sending my big love from my heart to yours, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.